Hello, welcome and welcome back to my channel. My name is Nekesa, and if you're new here, now you know me. And if you're a returning subscriber, thank you so much for always coming back. Please, those ones who have not subscribed, subscribe, like and share this video. And let's get into the video. In this video, we are going to talk about the principles of sign language. I have some few statements written down, and we're going to talk about 5 principles: human rights, confidentiality, the sitting position, correctness of information, and interpreter-client relationship. So the first one we are going to talk about is the human rights. So I'm going to read, then explain where I'm supposed to, or I feel I should. The first that we're going to talk about is the human rights. So the right of every person to access information. In this case, you have a client who is deaf and wants to get the information from a hearing person. So you're supposed to give the actual information that is given from the hearing person to the deaf person. So sign language interpreters should put into consideration that the deaf persons deserve and have a right to receive all the information as said. It shouldn't be a matter whether the information is unpleasant or not. The same way when someone is talking to us, we like to get all the information that that person is saying. The same thing should happen for the deaf person, because they have the right to get all the information, whether good or bad, whether said in a bad way or in a good way. That is the exact way an interpreter should be able to portray the message to the client. They should be able to decline the service of an interpreter if they feel that they are not being served properly. So this is for the deaf person or the deaf client. If the deaf client doesn't feel like I am serving them the way they feel they should be served, then they have the right, as a human being, they have the right to say that this is not the way I want it to happen, so I would like to have another interpreter. And also the interpreter should understand, because why not? Another thing that we're going to talk about is confidentiality. This is the second principle, and sometimes it becomes necessary for people with hearing impairment to take an interpreter along when they are going for medical checkups or court sessions or even interviews. So in such occasions, interpreters are expected to maintain the same kind of confidentiality as other professionals working in the field. For example, if it is in the hospital, you have to maintain the professional standard. You're not there as their parent, you're not there as their guardian, you are there as their voice. So you interpret from the hearing person to the deaf client, and from the deaf client to the hearing person. It is unethical for a sign language interpreter to reveal what they have interpreted in a session. For example, if someone is sick, let's say this is the hospital or medical checkup situation. If someone is sick with a certain disease, it is not in your place to go tell other people that this person is suffering from such and such a disease. It is not in your position. So whatever you had, keep it confidential, because it was information that you are not even supposed to hear. But because you're the interpreter, you had to interpret the information. However, there are times that the interpreter may be required by the law to report certain kinds of information to the authorities. Let's say, for example, in a court situation, if a deaf client tells you that they have killed somebody, and in the session or in the court session they are saying they are innocent, then it is required by law that the interpreter takes that initiative and tells out the right information, which is this deaf client killed a person, or whatever bad thing the deaf client did that is a must you tell. The third principle is the sitting position. An interpreter should always sit facing the deaf person. That is kind of obvious, because this person doesn't hear them. You're supposed to be interpreting to them. You are supposed to be facing them so that they can get that you are signing using your hands, and also they have to read the lip movement. That is crucial. There should be constant contact between the interpreter and the person they are interpreting for. Also obvious. Then the sitting position should be in such a way that they are at the same level with the person with hearing impairment. So if I am sitting on a flat surface, then the deaf client should be also sitting on a flat surface near me, not really near, but 1.5 to 3 meters away. And I'm not supposed to be sitting on a podium and the deaf person is sitting down there. We are supposed to be at the same level. This is so helpful because the concentration is there and there is no straining, because you can imagine you are an interpreter on a podium and your client is down here, so they should be like this. They are looking up at you, and it is so distracting because sometimes you can just get tired. So sitting at the same level will help to communicate in a very easy way. Another thing about the sitting position is the interpreter should not be seated too high or too low, exactly what I have said. Then the distance should be 1.5 to 3 meters. Should also, you as an interpreter should also make sure that you have lip movement so that this person, the deaf client, is able to read from your lip movement. Interpreter should be somewhere where there is good lighting and a good source of light just lighting over you. For example, in this setting that I am able to interpret and a person is able to see me in a very clear way. So an interpreter should be seated in a well-lit area or well-lit room for this person, deaf client, to be able to see and understand the information that is being passed across. The fourth principles of sign language interpretation is correctness of information. The information an interpreter passes on to a deaf client should be precise, must be precise. One should be sure to pass the meaning of what is said as the speaker intended it. Use of the same words spoken by a speaker may not always be reasonable in Kenyan Sign Language interpretation. In this case, make sure that you get the exact information from the speaking person, from the hearing person to the hearing impaired person. This might not be easy because we in Kenyan Sign Language don't use the exact words used in English. In our language, Kenyan Sign Language, we kind of take the most important things and tell it to the deaf person. So make sure you don't do something that will make the information wrong or not exactly what is intended to. Some words may not have exact meaning in Kenyan Sign Language as is in spoken language. For example, finish in Kenyan Sign Language may mean that the statement made is in a perfect tense, as opposed to the meaning in English that something has been accomplished. You see? So we should make sure that we use the words that make sense to the deaf client. Number 5 is interpreter-client relationship. Avoid advising clients, the deaf client. Instead, Pass on the information in the way that is as close as possible for the people with hearing impairment. The interpreter should have a relationship that is professional with the client. You as an interpreter are not supposed to advise the client. If you see that this information that this other hearing person is portraying and it's not making sense, or it is not appropriate according to you, it is not in your position to give advice. What you're supposed to do is take the information the way it is, interpret it to the person who is deaf, and leave it at that. You are a professional interpreter. You're not there to advise or give your own opinion at any point. Those have been the 5 main principles of interpretation, of sign language interpretation, and I'm sure that you have learned a lot, if not something small. And I'm so happy. Please like, subscribe, share. If you are here and you have not subscribed, see you in my next video.